This is TV Podcast Industries with our review of TV in 2020. Happy New Year, industrialists. This is TV Podcast Industries. We're back with our now annual review of TV, this time talking about 2020 and some upcoming shows for 2021. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow listeners. I'm one of your other hosts, John.
And rounding out the trio, I am Chris. We were going to call this a review of 2020, but we just thought no one would listen.
Absolutely,
so it's now a review of TV.
I wanted to make sure TV is in there. Yes, what a year. 2020 has been a tough year for everyone. We know this. We know it's been difficult for everybody. We've tried to avoid we've tried our best really to avoid talking about this global pandemic. We know it's been difficult for everybody, but we know hopefully, and we've heard from a lot of our listeners that the show has kind of helped them get through some of the difficult times this year. So we're not going to talk about the pandemic or the C word, as I've been calling it. We're not going to talk about it all. We just hope you stay safe. Hope that you and your family are keeping clear and keeping safe. And hopefully you'll enjoy this chat through all the TV for this year. Because I suppose one of the benefits of this year is more TV has been watched this year, I think, than any other year. In the past, everybody's been watching streaming services. I've been watching so many TV shows. We're going to go through some of the shows that we covered on TV Podcast Industry, some of the things that we didn't get to cover this year, and then some of the things we're going to be talking about over the course of 2021 as well. I know there's been lots, as I say, lots of TV watched this year. Guys, overall, what did you think of this year's TV?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Really enjoyed the shows that we covered. Certainly ones I wish we had covered. Mm-hmm. And, I thought, to be honest, I got into a lot of shows that I wouldn't have normally watched because, we were in lockdown.
Yeah. I think there was a statistic that came out during the start of this pandemic where people were going back to shows that had been released a long time ago because it felt comfortable and safe to watch something that you'd seen before and knew how it ended and knew that it ended well, that kind of stuff. So I know we revisited a few shows that we hadn't seen in a long time as well. I know we're rewatching at the moment Game of Thrones, which has been great fun. We were rewatching the last 5 seasons of that. So that's been great fun.
Yeah.
Chris, anything that you've been rewatching this year? Anything that you had seen before and rewatched this year?
100%. Good Place.
Oh, yes.
I went through all of that. I went through all of How I Met Your Mother. I went through all of Big Bang Theory.
Wow.
I went through all of... Yeah. What else have I gone through?
You poor thing, Chris. You didn't need to put yourself through all those horrible shows just because you were going through a pandemic.
So again...
Safe space.
Safe space. Yeah. Safe space.
Comfort blanket.
Yeah, that was really it. But then again, I also took the time to focus on a couple of shows that are just like light-hearted. So some new ones, but just light-heartedness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anything that just like, nothing that was serious. I especially in the first, say, 5 months of 2020, I spent the year just kind of going, do you know what? No, I can't do the serious drama. Sir, the world's going to end. No.
Yeah, I think the world was with you on that. I think Schitt's Creek has probably been the biggest benefactor of this. There's 5 seasons of that show.
Yes.
And they were up on Netflix, and I think everybody I know seemed to be jumping in and out of watching season after season of that. And it's such a fun show just to kind of roll through. It was really good. Before we get into our discussion about everything we've covered in 2020, we want to say a huge thank you to all of our lovely supporters over on Patreon. Most recently, Kevin Smith and Off-White Savior joined us as supporters over on Patreon. Thank you so much for your support, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us over on Patreon, Kevin and Off-White Saviour.
Kevin does spell his name differently from Kevin Smith, the very, very famous director and podcaster. Or he is Kevin Smith just supporting every single podcaster out there, but probably not.
He's just a pseudonym. It's Kevin Smith is a pseudonym of Kevin Smith.
Exactly.
But no, thank you very much, guys. I really do appreciate all of our Patreon supporters. Just like, I will now read out a couple of names, like Heather Wallace. Thank you so much. Parthenier Locklear. Thank you. Skyrocker. You keep rocking. Damien Roberts. you are the Damien to my Bruce Wayne. William Boggs, you are not the Bog, you are the Biggs. Yeah, you're the Biggs. There you go. That's a good one. Donald Dennis, the Big Double D, the Daredevil. Mariana Morris, the MM. I have to say, you guys are like literally Stan Lee named you all the DDs and the MMs. Also like Jimmy Aaron, you are the Jimmy to our Clark Kent. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chris, for all of those, because I'm...
Sorry, we're not supposed to, just supposed to name them.
Just name them.
Yeah,
That's fine. Yeah, continuing with our roll call of Patreon supporters for 2020, a big shout out and thanks to Angie Arhus, Lisa Svet, Franca Montevego, Cassandra McIntosh, Jenny V, Alice Bowler, Rich, and Jessica Batras.
And of course, the wonderful Dr. Bob Phillips, Steve Brown, Amy Fitzgerald, Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast, John, Aaron Dix, Stuart Campbell, and Claire Payne. Thank you so much to all of our supporters. We know how difficult 2020 is. We say it multiple times throughout this podcast, I'm sure. But thanks so much for your support throughout the year. It really has helped us out. Things like we got a new computer this year. We got a new mic for Chris. We got a new mixer for the podcast as well. So all of the money that has been sent to us through our Patreons has gone back into making the podcast as good as it possibly can be.
Yeah, thanks so much to everyone. It really is nice to have your support, and it's really appreciated. It's also a big shout out for all the support to all the listeners as well who've just literally subscribed to the podcast as well. So big thanks.
Yes, thank you so much, guys. You really are the power that keeps our engine going, the hamster in the wheel that keeps the podcast mics running. Thank you.
Excellent. I'm no longer the hamster. Thank you very much, patrons.
No, you're the rat in the maze.
Thanks, Chris. But let's talk about the shows that TV Podcast Industries did this year. We have recorded 81 podcasts this year. There's only 52 weeks in a year, obviously, as everybody knows, even this year, which felt like we had about 652 weeks this year, but we still recorded 81 podcasts this year. One less podcast than we did in 2019, which kind of surprised me.
Yeah, that's weird.
Isn't it? Because we did some merging together of some episodes of shows. We normally do one podcast episode for one episode of a show, whereas this year we actually did quite a few shows across one episode. So 3 or 4 episodes combined, I suppose.
Yeah.
So I was quite surprised when I put the number together. It was one less than 2019. I'm not working you guys hard enough this year.
Give me a click.
Yeah.
Let's hold back on that opinion for a second.
Yeah, exactly.
Overall, we covered 8 series. We covered 2 movies. 3 movies this year. Apologies. So we covered The Witcher. We covered Star Trek Picard, Penny Dreadful seasons 1 to 3, Penny Dreadful City of Angels, Umbrella Academy season 2, Lovecraft Country, The Boys season 2, and most recently we've been doing Pennyworth season 2. And we also covered the 2 Wonder Woman movies this year as well. So lots of content that we did. But what's most interesting, I suppose, in 2020 for us as a podcast, this was the first year we had no Marvel at all within our schedule.
Yeah, I guess that's it. The schedule disruption right at the start probably also accounts for the one less podcast, I guess. But also it was kind of like, well, we need to find some other shows.
Yeah, exactly.
Derek.
Yes.
I do believe we've gotten one episode. The hidden episode, the mystery episode of 2020 was the Umbrella Academy Season 1 recap.
That's right.
Was not included.
Excellent.
So we broke even. Excellent. So we are trending equal.
And I can put us over the top. If you're a Patreon subscriber, we also covered Captain America Winter Soldier this year. So we've done 83 episodes then. Excellent. Thanks, Chris. That's got us to 83. Brilliant. I am working you hard enough.
83 and a partridge in a pear tree.
So who wants to tell us what's your favourite thing that we covered this year? What's the one thing that really stood out as your favourite show? Chris, anything that stands out to you as the big show we covered this year?
Probably recency bias helps with this to a degree, but The Boys Season 2 for me was one of the standout moments, standout TV for me. It could have gone either way. It could have really gone downhill in Season 2. They could have leaned too hard into XYZ and made it too violent or too crass or too this or too that. It was still just perfect.
Yeah.
So for me, The Boys technically is winning that spot, But I will say it's like The Witcher season 1. I actually only recently, I think it was probably some point over Christmas, there was photos of Henry Cavill kind of out on his Instagram posts and stuff like that. And I went, oh yeah, he filmed or nearly finished filming season 2.
Yeah.
So that's juice. Or I think he took a break. Maybe they're going back in kind of January. But it was just like, oh yeah, that's going to be soon. Oh yeah, that ended well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they set it up for a really interesting season 2. So I was like, ooh. And then, yeah, so if I had gun to the head, it would have to be Boys season 2. But then I'm like, oh, Witcher, yeah, that could be, that was up there.
Yeah, I really like Witcher, I have to say. I think Henry Cavill, didn't he get injured? That's why he had to...
There were a couple of things. We will talk about that in the upcoming shows that we're going to be covering when we're talking about some things that have happened. The Witcher, because there's magic involved and because there's loads of CGI in the show, the filming process followed by the post-production process is a long time in comparison to some of the other shows that we cover. But they did start and stop because of COVID. Some actors had to be replaced because they were lost from production. But they did start and stop production in the last few months. So I actually don't know where they are, whether they've actually finished production. I don't think they have. I think they still have some filming to do there. Yeah, you're right. I think Henry Cavill did get injured at one point as well, but I would have to check that to confirm. I don't want to spread rumours about Henry Cavill just in case he didn't get injured.
I do hope they found the actors, though. If they've lost them, is it under the car seat or is it like in between the cushions?
Well, no. We know one of our favourite characters from Game of Thrones, one of our favourite actors from the final seasons of Game of Thrones, was working on The Witcher season 2, and unfortunately had to give up his place and get replaced by another actor when he unfortunately contracted COVID. So. I said I wasn't going to mention the C word, and you made me mention it already, guys.
I didn't say, you mentioned it. We didn't say
yeah, we didn't say anything.
John, anything that stands out to you this year?
And for me, it was Umbrella Academy.
Oh, right.
Really, really enjoyed it. I love all the characters in that, and I actually thought they brought them out even more and set it up really well with the Sparrow Academy and that kind of alternate kind of timeline, I guess. So I really enjoyed Umbrella Academy season 2.
So much better than season 1.
It was full of laughs, great, just really great. And I think then that teed up The Boys season 2, so hype for that as well. I think the one that maybe we normally wouldn't have covered on in previous years, because we went different directions. I think Lovecraft Country just absolutely tuned into my horror and sort of angle, and I loved that. I thought that was really good.
Yeah. For me, definitely Lovecraft Country was my standout show of the year. I wasn't expecting it in this. And 2 years in a row now, a show we weren't expected to cover came onto HBO, we covered it, and I've ended off at the end of the year. I'd probably put that as probably my number one show of the year. I loved Lovecraft Country. I love horror. I love history, and I loved what they did on this show, kind of telling a really realistic story along with some amazing supernatural elements in the show. It felt like a different show every single week, and we had no idea what we were going to be covering. We spent a lot of time researching what we were covering, seeing the actual historical facts, and that felt like a really different thing to do. Whereas normally you'd read comic books or you know the characters from comic books for the shows that we cover, and we kind of come into it with that kind of perspective, but I had no idea what to expect from Lovecraft Country, even though I was reading the book at the time. So, but it was a great show. Really, really enjoyed it. Boys season 2 was great fun too. Our biggest show, probably ever. We had covered Boys season 1, and it was very popular for us originally, but I think because we'd done that and then went in and covered season 2, people found our podcast, very easily because we'd already done the first season. And we got to number 25 in all-time after shows in the US for that show, which is, I think, amazing for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
As our little podcast out of Ireland. I think it was quite a massive achievement. And we all had fun talking about the show as well. So that was really enjoyable overall. Yeah,
and any show that has love sausage in it, you gotta give props to. Like, not only just the becoming 25th, but yeah. just fantastic.
And we got great feedback from our listeners on the boys as well. Everybody was really enjoying that show. It was great to have that show coming out every week as well, so that everybody could watch along at the same time.
Yeah, I kind of did like the trend as well to releasing on a weekly basis. That's becoming more of a thing, even on the streaming services. There's still, dumping.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like Umbrella Academy.
Yeah. But I really like that they are doing it on a weekly basis. I think it's just, certainly I think for a podcast, having that weekly engagement is really good, compared to having sort of that just engagement in a massive concentrated moment in time. Yeah. And then, okay, you keep the engagement, but certainly it changes the dynamic of the podcast.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely. I think the boys did their first 4 episodes, wasn't it? First 3 episodes released in a day, and then they went weekly after that, which gave people a nice little binge amount, and then go weekly afterwards. I thought it was really interesting to do. There's a couple of other shows that really succeeded this year by going weekly as well, which we didn't talk about, but we will talk about in the shows we didn't cover in 2020 in a moment. One last shout out that I'll give, covering Penny Dreadful, the original 3 seasons this year, something that we've never really done before, going back to a cancelled show, watching it and covering every single episode was so much fun. As a show, both myself and John absolutely loved Penny Dreadful when it was on originally, and going back and rewatching it and talking about just in short kind of snippets was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that.
Well, yeah, it started off as short snippets, but then the episodes are so filled with information that it became a bit more than that. Yeah, that was a great nostalgia trip for me.
Yeah.
I think because I loved the show originally. Just the concept of it was great. Loved that, and I always got hooked with the opening music. Just so good. Yeah. I think if I was doing another show like that, I'd probably do Hannibal, because we did cover season 3. Definitely late to the game though, but I enjoyed Hannibal.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot.
Absolutely. That and the shows we covered this year. We only, as I said, we only did 4 movies this year. I think I was only in the cinema 3 times this year. And I think we podcasted about all of them. No, we didn't podcast about Tenet. That was the one movie we didn't podcast about that I went to the cinema to see. So all the rest of them we went just for the podcast. But good films in the cinema, though. At least we had a bit of fun with Birds of Prey, the Harley Quinn Birds of Prey, with Wonder Woman 84, which we got to see in the cinema with 10 people, to be ultra safe. And we also went to see Tenet in the biggest screen in Ireland, in the IMAX cinema in Ireland, and there was only 23 people in the entire cinema, as far as I know, because they were, again, keeping people really safe.
Were you counting them?
I had to, yes. I had to know how many people were fitting into the massive cinema in Dublin.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have only seen Birds of Prey in the cinema this year.
Yes, that was...
Unfortunately missed Wonder Woman in the cinema, but did get to see it, which was fantastic. And then Tenet, I'm trying to convince my missus that we should watch it, but as she says, right now it is too bang, bang, blowy up for her. And then as soon as she asked who the lead actor was, and I said, his name's Protagonist. She went, nope. So it is one that I get to watch by myself, apparently. So just trying to find a time.
John David Washington is fantastic in the film. Definitely worth watching. And Robert Pattinson is also in there. Fantastic. Really, really, really recommend Tenet. Really enjoyed it. I think it's out streaming services from the 4th of January. So I'm definitely going to be watching that again.
Yes.
Let's pop over to you, our wonderful listeners. I popped up a poll over on Twitter and on our Facebook group about the shows that we covered this year. Which ones were your favourite? What do you guys think? I think there was a clear winner of our polls. Surprisingly, The Boys came out on top with about 50% of people who voted saying that The Boys was their favourite show. So on both Twitter and Facebook as well, it seems like The Boys came out on top. Most interestingly, though, I think I was surprised to see The Witcher coming out in second place on both polls.
Yeah.
And I know The Witcher is a really popular show, but that was 2 episodes of our podcast out of the 83 podcasts that we did in 2020.
Yeah.
So I was surprised, and
They were chunky episodes.
They
Like
certainly
we
were.
really did go into kind of most of each of the episodes.
Yeah.
And it had Henry
when
Cavill.
We swore that we were like, no, we're going to do 2 episodes. We're going to do it quick and easy.
Yep.
And I think one of them we were like, okay, this is coming on 3 hours now, people. We need to stop.
Absolutely.
And Henry Cavill is,
Swole.
is just great. Swole. I have never heard of that. What's swole? What's swole?
He's just like beefy. The latest photo of him is just in the gym, and his biceps have biceps now. And I'm just like, God, dude, you're making the rest of us look.
And he's in
And I'm sitting there with my like 3rd turkey leg, just kind of like,
I genuinely think that video of him building his home PC has had more views than The Witcher has. A really good looking nerd, and he's Superman as well. Like, what else does he need really? But yes, I will be the one person to say, second half of The Witcher, really enjoyed. First half of The Witcher, not a big fan of. I'm glad it ended really well, and I'm looking forward to season 2. I know you guys both enjoyed it a bit more than I did, but I was just quite intrigued to see how high that was up in our rankings across both of our polls, basically. Lovecraft Country came in number 3, which I'm really happy with. I know we got a lot of great listeners for that podcast as well. Some people that would never have listened to our podcast before popped on board to listen to our coverage of Lovecraft Country. So lots of appreciation there to our wonderful listeners.
Yeah, it's kind of a joint third here with Star Trek Picard and Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Can I talk about one which I'm still shocked about? Picard. Looking back on it now, like we've had the discussion. I was expecting maybe it was going to be like a fine wine. Maybe it aged over time, and we would be fine with it. So I actually I started a rewatch of it. Over during the beginning of the pandemic, because when I sat down with my wife, we were trying to figure out what shows to watch over the lockdown, the very first lockdown, and I suggested Picard, and we started to rewatch. It didn't age how I thought it would. In when I say age, on the second
it's only
rewatch,
7 months.
I know, and it's like this will be my 3rd rewatch, because we usually watch the episodes twice just before we record. So these were my 3rd. I was like, no. So I'm surprised. I suppose I expected it, now looking back, to be better than it was, and I have huge hopes for season 2. Based on some of the writers I know who they brought in for season 2 of Picard, including like Mark Bernardin, and a few others, who probably you would not know the names of, but are kind of very well known for coming in and really tweaking certain things. So I have, again, high hopes for season 2. When we'll get that will be interesting, because, their lead character is literally the epitome of a vulnerable group.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I know filming was supposed to have started on Star Trek Picard. It's a good point that you mentioned this, Chris. I was going to talk about the kind of disappointments of 2020 in TV, and I would say, again, weirdly, Picard in a different reason, and in a different way. The show itself was fine. It could have been better, and I understand that. There's definitely an episode in there that really needed to go back to the writers to be
definitely
restructured. But I'm really excited to see a second season of that show. The characters are now set. We have some intriguing ideas for the plot and some really interesting characterizations. But part of the reason why we didn't cover Star Trek Discovery this year, which was also on the slate of shows that we were going to put into our podcast this year, part of the reason was some of the interactions on Star Trek Picard that we got during this year were shocking to me. I'm responsible for the social media side of the podcast as well, the posting of it and trying to kind of promote it and trying to get interactions with fans. But wow, I was shocked at Star Trek, a show I've loved since I was a kid. The divisiveness from some people that are in there. Once they see the Star Trek hashtag, they kind of just don't want you in their community. There's loads of great fans out there, and we had some great listeners who were sending great feedback to us. But wow, the divisiveness that's in there in Star Trek. I just didn't even want to wade into that again when Star Trek Discovery was coming out. I was kind of going, I've got to stick clear of this. I'm just enjoying a TV show which has a really positive message of working together. By the end of the show, this really positive message about everybody should be working together to create a better future. And there's just people tearing it apart all over the place, and I just didn't want to wade into it again. That was my biggest kind of disappointment in 2020, because I went to see the premiere of Star Trek Picard last year. I was really hyped for that show and kind of thinking, this is something that's bringing back a character that's really beloved to all these fans. It's going to reunite this community that's been divided by, not my Star Trek kind of attitude. Once it came out, it was like, it just seemed to be destroyed by this group of people that just don't want to watch it, don't want anything new. They didn't seem to get the message from what Star Trek was trying to tell them when they were kids. I don't know how they grew up with this idea that everybody should be attacking each other, but I find that really difficult last year. Well,
and because it's a positive message, it gets caught up in this idea of culture wars, I guess. And it, it's not the only one. It can happen with a whole range of things.
It happened with The Boys, and I still haven't read out our review on iTunes of what somebody thought The Boys should have meant. But anyway, we had a few moments this year.
Yeah, some of our listeners do every now and again go, "What? Why would you not cover this and this or this?" And we give our answers. Usually, it's potentially. Majority of the time, it's time.
Yeah,
all of
exactly.
us have full-time jobs. This is our hobby, and now it doesn't feel like a job or it doesn't feel like work. It's just it's a hobby. It doesn't feel like anything. We enjoy doing this.
Yeah.
The problem being sometimes is when you look at as you said perfectly, the divisiveness, the online discussion of some of these shows. It's like, no, I don't want to ruin my own viewing of this by wading in on this.
Yeah.
Because as soon as we kind of walk in towards the quagmire, that is the discussion of some of these topics, we've gone back and forth a lot on some of the Star Wars stuff. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to discuss it online because, do you know what? I enjoy it. I enjoy a lot of them. And I'm afraid that if we have to get in that discussion, I think it will hurt. But anyway. But yes, I think you're right on the disappointment is the right discussion, the right term.
Yeah. That was a bit of a shame for 2020, because I really enjoyed the show. I loved seeing Jean-Luc Picard back on screens. It was really cool seeing Patrick Stewart take on that role again. Seeing some of the stuff that I loved in Star Trek Next Generation getting a new kind of lease of life. And I'll say it again, I love Discovery. I think it's one of my favorite shows on TV. And I would love to have covered Star Trek Discovery on here, but I just didn't want to wade back into that this year. We'll wade back into it when Star Trek Picard season 2
To be honest, the Star Trek world is really strong at the moment.
It is,
like even with Lower Decks, I love that.
Oh God, yes,
so good.
Fun, yeah.
Picard, was good. I loved the Romulan slant to it. As you say, there was the one episode where it was just like, okay, this has made everything else make no sense almost. And then Discovery. Yeah, I just wish we had kind of covered it from season 1. I think jumping into it on season 3, we've done that with Hannibal, and it's a difficult one to do, jumping in mid-season, I guess. But I think the Star Trek world is really strong at the moment with the content they're doing.
Yeah.
I don't like talking about negative stuff, but have you other disappointments from this year, guys?
For me, I think it is Penny Dreadful City of Angels. Again, I loved the show. I loved the actors in it. I love what they did. It feels like it was done in a way that was for a different time of TV. I think they needed to ramp up the supernatural stuff. It does feel very familiar, that first season, to the first season of the original Penny Dreadful. But I think, having more of the supernatural stuff in there, I think would have really, really worked, because there's a lot of threads in it. It's actually quite a big ensemble, TV series.
Absolutely.
And because of that, some storylines will connect with you more than others. And I kind of feel that maybe they focus on some more than others that I would have preferred to have seen other threads sort of highlighted and picked out. But I thought it was really good, and I really did enjoy it, and I'm sorry that there's no second season, but I think it's because it was almost made for a different time when the original Penny Dreadful came out, where you do a slow build up. And I think now TV, needs that bigger impact in that first season to be sure of a second. And I think, it's a shame, really. I just feel I wish there was more supernatural stuff. To be honest.
Well, I think there was lots of supernatural in there, and we've had this discussion on the podcast a bit, but I think the challenge that I saw with it was they set something up at the beginning of the series that this is going to be supernatural, and that almost exactly the same thing was shown in the last episode of that first season. And it was kind of going, come back next time for some supernatural stuff. And the first episode had already said that. Stay with us for these 10 episodes for some supernatural stuff. And then the end of the season was, there's something massively supernatural that's going to happen next season. Yeah. But then they didn't get a next season. So it feels, we kind of said that when we did our review of the final episode. If there's no second season, that kind of changes your perspective on the show, that the show will just disappear into the background. Yeah. And unfortunately it felt like the creator of the show John Logan thought he was getting 2 or 3 seasons to tell his story. And that's not always guaranteed. I don't know whether the pandemic this year caused them to cancel the show, or whether it was essentially the viewership of the show wasn't enough for them to hold out production for the 6 or 7 months that it was going to take to hold out. But yeah, it's just unfortunate that we're never going to hear those stories. There were some great characters in that show. I really would have liked to seen what they would do with the second season. Yeah.
That would be up there with me in terms of the disappointments. I'm going to be controversial. Mm-hmm. I apologize. Warning ahead. My disappointment is Wonder Woman 84. Now, not big for the reasons everyone thinks. Uh-huh. For me, it's just, it didn't capture the lightning in a bottle of the first one for me.
She literally used her whip to capture lightning.
I know, but not in a bottle this time. See, that's the problem. She just captured it. She lassoed it. She didn't just corral it and into the actual. No, no. I still enjoyed it. It just, I suppose, I personally had hyped it as this end of year savior TV or video moment, by TV in cinematic moment.
There you go.
It was going to be the savior for me, and it didn't. And that's partially my own hype and my own how I thought it was going to go. But also, there was some choices with the storyline and how it was portrayed and what was chosen that I just didn't agree with, or it's kind of like, why did you do it that way? Now, overall, it's still a good film. I will not take that away from Patty Jenkins or Gal Gadot or Chris Pine. It was still a good film. Uh-huh. It's just not. It was what I wanted, but just not in the way I wanted it. If that makes sense. So it was. Unfortunately, I personally didn't get a chance to cover it. I got a bit sick just before I was due to see it. And I was due to record with you guys, and I just unfortunately got a bit of a defection. Not the C word, people, don't worry. Thank you for even just jumping to that. No, I was just a bit normal sick. But I couldn't go to the cinema just to be safe. And there was a bit too much going on. Like, when you have a magic rock, why make him inhabit someone else's body and not just bring him back to life? Like, there's a lot of little things, but overall, still want to say, good film, really good film, just could have been better.
You know, I was saying this to John after we'd recorded our podcast. We were, again, very lucky to see the preview for that. We went to see it in the cinema, courtesy of Warner Brothers Ireland, going to see it with just critics in there, no real reaction from the audience in there to judge. So it was all about myself and John watching the film, coming out afterwards and talking about what we thought about it. And then suddenly it came out on streaming services in the US on Christmas Day. And from the second it was up on streaming services, from the very second it was up, suddenly you get criticism of the movie going on. And then it just, when I woke up that day after it had been out, suddenly it was just this ball of vitriol being thrown at this movie. And I was going, we had great fun in the cinema watching this thing, and everybody's pulling this thing apart completely. And we're going, I'm glad I didn't see all that stuff before we saw the movie, because it might have tainted my opinion about it.
Well, that's it.
It still hasn't now. It hasn't changed my opinion about it. I really enjoyed it and had lots of fun. But there was loads of things that people were pulling apart, and the story threads. And we were kind of going, well, you'd have to suspend disbelief on this type of movie. And I still think, after watching all the DC Extended Universe movies, as they call all the combined ones after the Nolan movies, it's still probably top 5 for me. That's maybe not saying much about the other 5 that are in the 10 movies that are released, but it's still top 5 for me. It's still kind of up there with as a really good film.
I think as well, it's, tonally, it's different. It's a shift compared to the first Wonder Woman. First Wonder Woman is set in World War One. It's about death. It's about chemical weapons. It's about, all of that kind of stuff. And this one is set in the 80s, which is happy-go-lucky. Yep. And I think that's what it was trying to capture there. So it's actually very different. And when we were in the cinema watching it, it was that where I was going, I want that moment where, from the first movie, where she is going across the battlefield, and you've got that music, and it was just so epic. And I think that came right at the end. Like, I loved the ending of Wonder Woman 1984, and I think you got that there. But I suspect a lot of people will need to reevaluate their love of 1980s movies if they don't like Wonder Woman 1984, because it actually really did inhabit the spirit of movies in the 80s. So it's certainly the big blockbuster ones where, some things just didn't make sense.
Absolutely.
And dare I say it, maybe I'm a little bit on a roll with that because, just binged Cobra Kai, which there's parts of that make absolutely no sense, but it is such a loving little thing to sort of 1980s movies, TV, where some things just happen that shouldn't, but it's like, yeah, okay, I can do that. Like the Goonies or whatever.
It's a love letter to, like, the opening mall scene is a Donner Cut-esque love letter. Yeah, exactly. It is like Superman is wholesome, Wonder Woman is wholesome. It's a wholesome scene. Like, technically she nearly kills people. Like, if you don't suspend belief, she's smacking normal men around. Like, they should be dead, but no, they just get wrapped up in a blanket and left on the cop car for the cops. Like,
Absolutely.
It's that. It's like, if you go back and look, if you apply a prism or a lens of realism to these films, like, Superman in the original Chris Reeves Superman, he flies around the Earth so fast that he turns back time. Like, this is not like, you have to suspend belief on these films.
Exactly.
But it's wholesome.
You have literally picked out the most divisive thing that happens in the original Superman films, that people still argue how awful that was as a choice for the movie. Because if he could do that, he'd just do it all the time.
But it's still fun.
But yes, exactly. And Wonder Woman 1984, I think was great fun. So that's kind of the disappointments for the year. Let's close out the disappointments, because there's been so much other disappointing things. At the end of the day, these are TV shows and movies that entertained us at the end, right?
Yeah,
we all really enjoyed them, and they took care of us at a time we couldn't leave the home. So we're really appreciative of those two. Let's go to the other slightly disappointing thing about TV podcast industries, the things we didn't cover in 2020.
Okay, who wants to go first on this one?
There were lots of shows we didn't cover. Once again, 2 years in a row, number one thing that we didn't cover, which we absolutely should have covered, was Mandalorian. Mandalorian season 1 was really good. It was a good setup for the Disney world of what they were going to do with their TV shows. Mandalorian season 2 knocked it out of the park. I think it was one of the best shows this year. We're constantly asked, we get emails from people going, why aren't you doing Mandalorian? Unfortunately, just timing didn't work out this year for us. And to be honest with you, I spent more time listening to shows about The Mandalorian, other podcasts about The Mandalorian, than I did recording our own. There's so many great podcasts out there that do a great job of covering it, that I just didn't feel we could add anything to the space either. I'd love to have covered it. We really enjoyed it. We're all Star Wars fans, so we definitely could have done a reasonably good job on it. But I think I've enjoyed other podcasts covering it a lot as well. So loads of options out there. But that's my number one that I think we missed out on again this year. But we'll talk about some Star Wars, hopefully, in the future.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, hopefully. Ooh,
Teasers.
yeah. Well, just coming back to what I was saying before, Cobra Kai. I kind of wish we had taken that on back in season 1. Of course, we just had no idea how it would play out. But I have to say, this is just a fuzzy, heartwarming series, and really I really, really like it. I think I liked how they twisted it with, you have Johnny and LaRusso, where actually your sympathy is with Johnny, but then his character with Miguel, the two of them are really, really good.
So good together.
I mean, it absolutely is something where the tropes are thick and fast, but it is just really good, and you're like going, why are you falling out again? This shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
But it's I just really like it, and I like how they're feeding it back into some of the original Karate Kid movies and showing some of the scenes there, and kind of then expanding on that. Exactly. I really I've got a very, very soft spot for Cobra Kai.
Absolutely. It does feel like a really comforting show where you don't feel too put upon watching it. It doesn't feel like too difficult to get your mind around. I love those moments when you go, one character's reaching in for a kiss to the other one, and you go, look behind you, because the person that absolutely shouldn't be seeing this kiss is going to be standing right there. Oh, yes, they are.
Exactly.
Right there. It's that kind of show. Really good fun. I think it was all, the first 2 seasons were originally on YouTube, sold off to Netflix, and they landed on Netflix 1st of January 2020, I think, both seasons of the show. And then, the 3rd season just came out this week, on Netflix. Go check it out. We've already watched the 3rd season, in 2 days. So,
and they're half an hour episodes.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of heart in there. And a lot of 80s tropes.
Yes, there is. Definitely. Chris, anything that we didn't cover this year that we haven't talked about?
For me, I'm going to say Schitt's Creek.
Right.
I did not. So everyone, it's a bit like Game of Thrones, the first season of Game of Thrones. Everyone was like going, oh my God, you have to watch this. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. Watch it. And I was like, yeah, I'll get to it. In December, I binged Schitt's Creek, all seasons, and I actually just finished on New Year's Day. The final season, plus the behind the scenes retrospective documentary on Netflix.
Right.
Like, I fell in love with this show. It's amazing writing. The storylines are engaging. The characters are fantastic. It would not be a usual show for me, because it's comedic, but somewhat drama. It's just, I wasn't expecting it, but to sing its praises, it is, I would say, one of the best shows of the last decade. Like, that's how high I would rate it. And also, it went out on its own timeline. They literally could have gone on, and it could have, like, apparently they were offered quite a bit of money to continue into season 6 and 7 and 8 and 9. And they went, no, we want to leave the storyline where we want to leave it. We want to leave the characters where we want to leave it. Now, I think they've left the door open for follow-ups and reunions and things like that. I was about to give away a spoiler for this final season, but no. Exactly.
Please don't, because we're only on season 3. Schitt's Creek weirdly is a show that I find difficult recommending, because I've said it before the podcast, comedy is just a thing that is very specific to me. I know, and that comedy is specific to everybody, but every time somebody has told me this comedy is great, I hate it. Like, every time. People telling me that the best Marvel movies are Thor Ragnarok and Guardians of the Galaxy put me off their taste completely. Because I just don't like that comedy. Schitt's Creek, I think you have to get through a full season of that show to get your head around how their comedy works. It's very slight sometimes. It's very subtle sometimes. And when you get into season 2 and then season 3, you're kind of into the characters, which is one thing I would find really difficult recommending to somebody. Just watch 2 full seasons of a show and then you might like it. I don't know.
Well, that's it. I think Schitt's Creek, I've really grown to love this show. And I think it's because I've always never really fully gotten the improv side of comedy.
Yeah, I get you.
When it's done well, I love it. It's not that I don't like it. It's just, like Arrested Development had that, and I love that. Whereas some of the other shows, and I knew that this was going to have an element of that, but I think they do like Arrested Development, it works for me in this show. Yeah. Other shows, I've just not really, it's just not gelled with me, like Curb Your Enthusiasm, say. Yeah. But this, I really have, like Chris says, I think the characters are great, their situation, it's the situational comedy of them. Like the mother is great. Reminds me of the mother in Arrested Development in that sense. Slightly kooky. It's great springboard for a whole range of other things. As I think this is really well done.
I totally agree with you there, John. I have a constant criticism of these improv comedy. There's everything from like Seth Rogen stuff and all of that style of comedy where it's like, yes, I get that you're good at improv. How about you improv it for a few weeks, then write a script and film the script. Right? It's not funny just because you said it, but Schitt's Creek does a really good job. Not sure whether we would have gone back and done 4 seasons of Schitt's Creek this year, as a podcast. Any other shows this year that stood out to you we haven't covered?
I just want to honorable mention Truth Seekers.
Right.
Which is the Simon Pegg, Nick Frost piece that came out on Amazon, on Amazon Prime Originals. Timeline schedule, could we fit it in? Unfortunately, we just couldn't. But I really want to give this one a shout out. The first 30 minutes, the first episode, you're like, not sure where this is going. It doesn't really know whether it wants to be a horror, did it want to be a comedy? Like, it was just, it had this weird blend. And by the end, so it's what, like 10, I think it's about 8 or 10 episodes, each one about 30 minutes. By the end of that season, I was engrossed, going, no, this is actually quite clever writing. The young actor, I believe his name's Samson Kao. He never had seen him before, never heard of him, and he really shines in this show. And to the point that when we saw him, Death 2020, which was a fantastic kind of short Charlie Brooker piece that came out on Netflix, he's in that, and I'm like, oh, that's where I know him from. And I think we're going to see him in Truth Seeker Season 2. I think this will be one of the shows, I think in 2021, 2022 when it comes out, where everyone's like, have you seen this show? There's a whole other season and it's fantastic. I think they found their footing. They figured out what they want to do by the end. And it's very much, if you like the Cornetto trilogy of Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, this is more Nick Frost. It's a Nick Frost show, but you can see the comedic, you can see some of the parts of Nick Frost and Simon Pegg.
This is Nick Frost.
The Cornetto trilogy. You can see some of the same DNA in there. It would be a huge honorable mention for anyone who didn't get a chance.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you on Truth Seekers.
Good fun, wasn't it?
It really built, and I was like, I got more into it as it went on, which is actually a really good arc for a series. Another little honorable mention for me, there's something, Chris, that you actually recommended to us, was Upload with Robbie Amell.
Yes.
I thought this was really, really good. I wasn't expecting anything as such. Like, I kind of felt, oh no, this is going to be Green Arrow because it had Robbie Amell in it. But it was funny. It's pretty guy who has an unfortunate accident and then is uploaded. But it was comedic. It was dark. It was, it had little bits of inspiration maybe from Black Mirror stuff. And I love the 8 episodes of this show as well. And they've got a season 2, I think.
They definitely got a season 2. Yeah, it was created by Greg Daniels, who also created a show for Netflix at the same time. So Upload was his Amazon Prime show. On Netflix, he did Space Force, which I thought was terrible. Couldn't get past the 4th episode of that. It's amazing when a creator has 2 different shows come out at exactly the same time, and one is really good. Like, Upload, every episode felt like they were doing something new with it, doing something really interesting with it. And Robbie Amell was great. I never saw him as a leading man before. I'd seen him as a kind of a background actor in so much stuff, a supporting actor in so much stuff, but seeing him as the central role in this show actually made me like him a lot more. Really enjoyed him.
Yeah. But yeah, he does. Unfortunately, Robbie Amell has that. Yeah, as you said, he's the pretty supporting actor. He I think he's been to a degree typecast as that for the last while. And it wasn't until he did a film with Stephen Amell. I think it's called Code 8 or something. I haven't watched it. But that seems to be a turning point, apparently, since like he's now starting to be considered as this leading man. And yes, Upload was just...
Yeah, it was really good.
It was a shock for me because I did it. I watched it kind of going, it's like, look, someone said like, watch this. It's going to be good. And I'm like, all right, well, look, I've got a couple of hours. I'll try it out over a day or two. And then I just went...
It also did lead us down the Robbie Amell route as well, and we did see the old slasher, kind of soft slasher, The Babysitter, Killer Queen, which I thought was kind of... I liked it. It wasn't... I'm not going to say it's a 10 out of 10 or anything like that, but it was just like, oh, this is good, cheesy fun.
Well, the problem with The Babysitter, Killer Queen was we got 20 minutes into the movie and realised it's a sequel to a previous movie, and most of Killer Queen is made up of footage from the previous movie that we hadn't seen. So I was watching it kind of going, well, I wish I'd seen the original because that looks like a really fun film. This one looks like it's just pieced together from the previous film, unfortunately. Other stuff from this year that we didn't get to cover, and I know we watched, really enjoyed The Kingdom, the Korean zombie show. 2 seasons of that out on Netflix, watched 2 episodes of it and suddenly transported into this completely different zombie universe. I love zombie stuff. So a completely different version of zombies than I'd seen in anything else.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Based in feudal Korea, really different type of show. Really enjoyed that this year. Hellstrom is another one we didn't cover. The final Marvel show from ABC TV. I think MODOK is still coming from them, but that's gone a little bit silent. And it's a comedy show, a half-hour comedy show. Hellstrom seemed to be in the same mold as some of the other ABC TV shows. It was okay. I think we got about 5 or 6 episodes into it and then started to kind of feel it was slowing down. And then the fact that it got cancelled and hasn't got a second season didn't make me really want to push through any further with the show.
Yeah.
Like the actors, they were fine
good
parts, but it felt like they were trying so hard to make this not a Marvel show in a way, because they kind of lost the momentum from ABC TV to make this something connected to the other shows. So that was unfortunate, but we just wanted to mention there was an opportunity to cover a new Marvel show this year.
I think and as well, I think with the Kingdom, that really linked into the Ghost of Tsushima for gaming, which was really good. Where we were in feudal Japan and the attack by the Mongols. That was really cool game. And going from one kingdom to another, I got into Last Kingdom. I kind of like the whole Viking thing, but the Last Kingdom is set in I suppose Anglo-Saxon England and the Vikings attacking there. And again, I think it's just kind of really good. I'm not entirely sure it's the best thing ever, but there's just something about the spirit of it. It's really cool. Kind of really got into it.
It's like, it's semi-historical. Like, it's definitely based on the concept of what happened at the time. But I know I've jumped in and out of episodes. You tend to watch this while I'm editing the podcast. I tend to come down and see John's gotten through 4 or 5 episodes of the show. And almost every time I get there to watch an episode, it's like, why has the king done that? Oh God, that's really stupid. Now his whole kingdom's going to get burnt down. And then someone gets captured and put in prison that was the leader of one of the other factions, in the previous time I saw the episode. It's like everything just seems to collapse in on itself over and over again.
It really does.
But maybe that's the way that it happened in history.
It probably did. And of course it's now fed into Assassin's Creed Valhalla as well. So, which is kind of, so, I guess to TV shows that have also then translated into sort of semi-connected or associated games for me on
gaming
PS4.
Experiences, yes, absolutely. Been really, really good fun. Yeah, lots of other great gaming experiences this year as well. Yeah, Valhalla and Ghost of Tsushima have been fantastic. I know they'll look even better whenever we get a PlayStation 5.
Well, I have both. I have my PlayStation 5, I have my Xbox, and I can guarantee that they will.
Excellent. Lucky Chris. One of the show that I fell to this year that I absolutely loved, was Succession.
Yeah.
Really, really good show. Another great HBO, production. They're so good. Really interesting. Didn't think I was going to enjoy it. It's just about a whole family, in corporate America.
It's the Murdochs, effectively.
Kind of the Murdochs, kind of the Koch brothers, that whole thing of how the media is controlling America, but it's much more about, as the title of the show says, the succession of a family when there's an elder statesman who's been in such control of the business and he's supposed to be retiring. Yeah. What happens with the rest of the family? Who's going to take over?
And that elder statesman, played by Brian Cox, he's so good
yes.
in it. And it, like, the family works just so well together. Yeah. In a different way to Schitt's Creek in a sense, yeah, but like, it's really well done. And the guy who wrote it was involved with Peep Show, which is a Channel 4 comedy series. And there's that element of underlying dark humor that is in it all the time.
And without a doubt, my favorite character, Kieran Culkin, in this show is so good. You guys remember him from Scott Pilgrim versus the World, his kind of breakout performance when we hadn't seen him since he was a kid and all the Home Alone movies and that kind of stuff. He came back with this amazing character in Scott Pilgrim versus the World. It's a similar character he's playing in Succession in a much more adult show, I suppose, in a way. Succession, really good. Definitely highly recommend that one. Any other quick call-outs on things we didn't cover from the year? I know His Dark Materials was, again, a great show the second season, even better than the first. Really loved that show this year as well. A
very, very quick one for me, which was The Flight Attendant.
Oh, right.
Which is one I just wanted, it seemed to be, if a lot of people missed it, because kind of just the timing.
I did.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Kaylee Kuko, who you remember from Big Bang Theory. It's her first.
I've never seen The Big Bang Theory.
She was Penny in The Big Bang Theory.
Okay.
It's her first kind of producing directorial. I think she directs one of them, but she's definitely the producer of this show. She bought the rights of the book. It's really, really good. It's a thriller about a flight attendant.
Okay.
And really well written, well produced. Do you remember The Mind Palace? From Sherlock Holmes and Hannibal. Where they kind of have that, where they're able to talk about things and see things in their own, and from a visual production point of view, it's well visualized, if that makes sense. Okay. I know that's terribly, I describing that terrible, but it's a really, really strong, good show, and I would highly recommend it. It's got a season 2. But it wraps up beautifully in season 1.
Okay.
It could have been self-contained, but no, they've given it a season 2. There's a second book. It's all based on a book. The book is quite well received. I think now it's a bestseller.
Right.
It was kind of one of those sleeper hits, and then then the rights were bought, and then it became a bestseller.
Right.
When everyone kind of went, "Oh, this is being turned into a show." But yeah, I would strongly recommend it to a lot of people.
Interesting. Yeah, I've only recently started hearing about that, so it might be one to check out in 2021.
Yeah, I think for me, honourable mention to The Expanse. Love that as a sci-fi show. Now it's on Amazon Prime, and also just in the spirit of Christmas, I guess. Just because there always seems to be like an Agatha Christie type thing, or there was like Making a Murderer back then. We watched a 4-part documentary series, The Ripper, based on the Yorkshire Ripper, from the late 70s to the early 80s. And like, coming relatively close from there, it's not something I was ever on my radar. And it's not really focusing on the Yorkshire Ripper. It's focusing on effectively a huge mishandling of it by the Yorkshire police force. And the press. And the press. And it was really, really interesting. Yeah. It's just 4 episodes. But that was a really interesting look at a serial killer that I knew about, but, just hadn't really, kind of known anything too much about. So
Yeah.
if you're into that kind of true crime element, then I think something like that's kind of quite interesting.
Yeah, true crime podcast industries coming soon.
No, not at all.
We are not doing.
I
a
wouldn't
true
know how
crime
you
podcast.
kind of podcast on.
Serial.
There are
2.0.
675,000 podcasts about true crime. So
yeah, exactly. And I think Serial can do that if they want to.
Yeah, exactly. That's it for the shows we haven't covered in 2020. We did cover loads. There's of course loads out there. It's been a weird year considering how many shows had to shut down production. It's been amazing to see how many shows actually completed production and were out there. Really intrigued to see what 2021 is going to bring us. Because we don't really know. There's lots of shows that got renewed. Lots of shows that are definitely coming back, but we don't know when production starts in them, and that means we don't know when the release is going to be. A couple of ones that we're really looking forward to. Definitely, we know The Boys season 3 and a spin-off set in college for superheroes, or for soups. Sorry, I forgot my nomenclature from The Boys there. But they're both due to kick off production next year. They're both filmed in Australia, isn't that right? So both due to kick off production in 2021. But we have no idea how long that's going to take them to be available for release. I know traditionally it's usually a summertime show or a late summer, early autumn show, but it may have to push out into 2022. We know Umbrella Academy season 3 has been announced and is ready to go for production. The scripts have been written, and they're saying they're going to continue to work on the scripts until they have the go ahead to get released or to get released to film. Let's say, but we don't know when that's coming. Middle Earth, the TV show based on the Lord of the Rings book or J.R.R. Tolkien's universe, I suppose, has actually been continuing film because it was set in New Zealand, who we all know have been doing quite well over the course of 2020. And the production has been going on throughout the last couple of months, which will be really interesting to see what's coming from that. I expect that to be a very dense and intriguing show. When it comes, they keep announcing more and more cast members. I think we're up to about 25 cast members, named cast members right now, which feels like it's going to be a very big show.
I hope so.
I believe Wheel of Time as well continued production because it was filming around the same place. So that could be a 2021 show.
Interesting.
But I think that's kind of exactly as you said. A lot of the shows that we know have either been, who've been announced for season 2s or 3s or 4s have been renewed, and we know they've been working on the script. I'm expecting a lot of them to be 2022 at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately.
Exactly.
For example, The Boys. They would have started more than likely filming season 3 of The Boys and the spin-off in July or August last year. When they were doing the release and they announced, they would have started then and we would have been ready for a July or August 2021.
Yeah.
That is not the case now. So, and I think what we could end up seeing is a lot of the films and or more the TV shows filming towards the end of the kind of June, July this year, and then being ready. Like 2022 is going to be packed in terms of show releases. Hopefully,
yeah. We still don't know how things are going to all pan out completely, but as we mentioned, again, The Witcher did go back to filming probably a bit early, unfortunately, because of how the production shut down. But we have no idea when that's coming either. That could be towards the end of 2021. But at least they've started production. So we know that. We know for definite that Pennyworth, which we haven't even talked about in this podcast. We've just been covering the first 4 episodes of that show. We know production completed on it. They were doing some post-production work. And again, with everything going on, they had to push out the latter half of that season. But the show is finished. That does return on March 7th, 2021 for the final 6 episodes of the second season of the show. And it's been fun going back into the world of Pennyworth.
It's a weird, wonderful little take on Alfred Pennyworth, for sure.
On DC's London. Definitely an interesting one. So looking forward to that. Other shows that we know are in production at the moment. Sandman from Neil Gaiman and Netflix started production in October, I think. And we know that's coming out really soon. Really intrigued to see what they're going to do with that on screen. That's a really interesting visual comic book and a fascinating story. So I'm really intrigued at how they're going to merge those on a Netflix budget, which is high, but Netflix do tend to to try and keep things more realistic. So I'm trying to see how they would do that. But I'm really intrigued. Neil Gaiman quite heavily involved in that as well. So, it is his baby. He's not going to, hopefully not going to allow it to be destroyed. John, anything that's in production at the moment that you were looking forward to?
One of the things for me, and I guess for fellow fanables, is that there is the show Clarice, about Clarice Starling, coming from Alex Kurtzman, who was involved with Discovery and Picard, and partnered with Brian Fuller, the original creator of the Hannibal TV series. So I'm kind of really intrigued on that for sure.
Do you know what really makes me really interested in Clarice? For so many years, the Hannibal TV show was trying to work around Silence of the Lambs. They couldn't get the rights to it. It was owned by a different company. They always said they wanted to have the 4th season of Hannibal be Silence of the Lambs, effectively. And they never got there. And they're still talking about, could they do a one-off special where Will Graham and Hannibal come back and they are able to take elements of Silence of the Lambs. And now another channel has gotten the rights to Clarice Starling's character and is telling us her story. I think that's really interesting that we have something completely different coming from another creator who worked with Brian Fuller, and he's looking at Clarice. So I think that's really intriguing. They could never work with the character on Hannibal. I think she appeared for a scene, or two, in the 3rd season of Hannibal, if I remember my Hannibal correctly, but they couldn't tell that story. So I'm intrigued at how they've gotten the rights for that. But I like Alex Kurtzman's stuff. So, and I really like the trailer for that. So that'll be an interesting one to have a look at.
Quick one for me. Probably going to land in 2021 is Jupiter's Legacy, or Jupiter Legacy, which is part of Mark Miller, comic book creators, his Miller World, which Netflix bought the rights to.
Oh yes, yeah.
So that finished production, as far as I know, back in 2020. There was apparently a trailer cut and being viewed in September, October last year.
Interesting.
And because Mark Miller said he had seen a trailer, an early cut. Yeah. There has been photos of it. So to my understanding, it is coming in 2021 at some point.
Interesting.
And it is, for any of our, old Defenders TV podcast friends, the one and only showrunner is Stephen DeKnight.
Oh, very good, from the original Daredevil series.
Exactly.
Excellent.
So I'm expecting good things from this.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting. Yeah, it's so difficult to put dates on the stuff that's in production even at the moment, because so many post-production houses have had to have people working from home and doing, I think the one that I found really intriguing this year was Discovery. One of the reasons it was delayed by 2 or 3 months its release was because the orchestra, of course, couldn't be together in the same room to record the orchestration for the show. And that show is a show that definitely deals in big orchestration. So they had to delay part of the post-production because music, it's quite an amazing feat to get a TV show together. So, it'll be intriguing to see what stuff here does actually land next year. What we do know, because there was a massive announcement about it at the Disney Investors Day, is there is lots and lots of stuff going on over on Disney Plus. Do you want to talk about the Marvel stuff that's coming this year, guys?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We didn't get the chance to talk about this, and we said we were going to set aside some time to have a podcast about all of the announcements coming from Marvel on Disney Plus. Let's talk about those first. First up, we know this. We've talked about this a few times on various podcasts in the last while. Coming in just a couple of weeks' time, WandaVision is the first Marvel TV show coming on Disney Plus. My mind is so broken by the trailers for that. I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea whether the trailers that we were seeing is just the first episode and Wanda's traveling through all these different time zones in a sitcom and then every other episode is going to be different, or whether every episode is set in a different timeline. I don't know how you do a half-hour sitcom focused on two characters like Wanda and Vision. I have no idea how the show's going to pan out. And the more trailers I see and the more images I see, the less I know.
I can't wait for this. Mainly because obviously it's going to feed into Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Got to get that in. Plug.
Of course.
But it's actually just going to be great to get back into, Marvel. I think with it kind of just going on hiatus effectively in 2020. I'm really looking forward to this slate. And I think this is a really intriguing kickoff to it. As you say, looks part, Pleasantville, part, I guess, Truman Show, but that idea of being trapped in multiple realities or universes should be really good. And I guess it's a big thing as well for the future of maybe the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well, really, I guess. And I think with the Spider-Man animation that really showed that worked for audiences. So kind of really intrigued with WandaVision.
For me, this is why I am happy January is here. If that makes sense. This is, it's the kickoff of the post-Endgame MCU. This is really for what it is for me. This is where the new Marvel, non-comics, the TV, the film is going. This is where we are after 22 films and 10 years and all this. This is okay, let's see what they have next. And it's just going to be interesting. Also, it's going weekly, which is just crazy.
Why? Why is this crazy?
No, it's not crazy. It's just, I thought the exact same thing about The Mandalorian. Like, oh wow, like they're going to do this weekly and not in one go. And oh wow. I very much believe the WandaVision will do for Marvel what The Mandalorian did for Star Wars. This is going to be, hey, look, all this rich stuff that we've been telling in films, do you know what? This can work. This universe has characters and stuff that you did not even know you wanted in TV, and showing it on a 30 to 50 minute weekly basis. This is what you want. This is it. And I think that is going to be the showstopper for a lot of people.
Yeah. It's really interesting, isn't it? Because when we started off our Defenders TV podcast coverage back with Daredevil, the whole message that was going out about Marvel TV at the time was it's all connected. You will see connections. Yeah. You'll see connections to the universe. Now with Kevin Feige at the helm, with Disney Plus, with the whole organization being streamlined behind Marvel, down to the fact that we have one person responsible for the movies, TV and comic universe. Remember, he is the guiding hand behind the comic universe as well. You do really feel that it's all connected thing is going to pay off in WandaVision and all the other shows that are coming up. You really do feel that they're going to be, the production values and the money that's involved is a lot more than was available to them when they were selling their properties to different companies to make them. But you're right. The thing that is really exciting about it is this is the first stab out there of Marvel TV's new stamp with Disney Plus. That's the Mandalorian thing. You know, in the past, the same way with Star Wars, there were Star Wars TV shows right back from the 80s. There were Star Wars cartoons right back from the 80s. But having something like The Mandalorian out there saying we're taking a movie budget and turning it into a 10-episode TV show or an 8-episode TV show, very, very different. And they've done a great job on that. With the WandaVision 6-episode TV show, I'm really excited to see what they do. It feels like something brand new from Marvel.
Yep. And just want to once again plug Jon Favreau, the man behind Iron Man, who kicked off the MCU, and Mandalorian, that kicked off the Star Wars universe in from a television perspective.
Absolutely. Good old Jon Favreau.
Guiding hand.
Yeah, and then hot on the heels of that is Falcon and the Winter Soldier in March. And it just kind of then is the domino effect of everything that's being kind of held back, I guess, to some extent.
Yeah, Falcon and the Winter Soldier was supposed to be the first show released by Disney Plus originally. They had the whole plan directly after you see the end of Endgame. Falcon and the Winter Soldier are going off in their future together. The show was supposed to lead out from that. Captain America being one of the most popular characters in the Marvel Universe and his supporting characters being really popular as well. It felt like the right characters to kick off this universe. So unfortunately, delay in production again has led it to be moved out. But I've been really intrigued to see there's loads of supporting characters coming into all these shows as well. Loads of people that aren't named in the title going to be coming in the show, including Daniel Bruhl's going to be on as Baron Zemo again, coming back after his appearance in Civil War, which will be really intriguing to see how they incorporate him in the show.
Because I loved his storyline from Civil War.
Yeah.
And it's one actually. I have no idea what the storyline or anything is going to be aside from
espionage.
Yeah, it's also it's just like Falcon taking up the shield, like, or Bucky taking up the shield. That's all I know is there's just something about it. It's one of those ones I'm just like, ooh, like this could go any which way. And I think that's some of the fun.
Absolutely. And then after Falcon the Winter Soldier, we get our first Marvel movie released, in almost a year and a half. In May, we will finally have Black Widow released in the cinema. Intrigued to see how that's going to hit, I suppose, because it's been a long time. It's been almost a year from its original release date to when it will get released. Following that, back to Disney Plus for Loki, the TV series all about Loki, which again joins directly into his disappearance in Endgame and takes place directly after that and what happened after that. So
yeah, and I'm not sure what's happening in that either. It almost looks like, dare I say, a retail show. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it because the trailer. I don't know if I understand what the hell is going on, which of course is great for, the god of mischief, I guess. But, I'm really intrigued for Loki because that also looks different to me.
I just want to know what a retail show is, John.
I can't remember. It's like it's set in a department store. I don't know. It's just the way it's kind of shot. It's because he's going up in an elevator and all this kind of thing. I expect he comes out onto, like the shop floor of a big department store, but it isn't. I know that, but it just has that kind of vibe to it for some reason.
Weird.
I know. How weird my mind works.
It's supposed to be the Marvel Quantum Leap, if you will. He will be hopping around time fixing some stuff.
Interesting.
Okay.
And it's very much an anti-hero story, but not in the way that, like, we had Punisher as an anti-hero, an ultra-violent anti-hero. It's going to be, he is the bad guy that you like to root for.
Loki is the most popular character, really, in Marvel. He's the one that seems to have kind of hit with so many people. He's appeared in so many different movies over the years, just in cameo appearances here and there. It's really interesting to see what they're going to do.
Well, I was going to say, Loki has been the Sorcerer Supreme, so just if he was the Punisher Supreme, I think, oh my goodness, that would be a really different show.
It certainly would. Also confirmed, and lots of discussion about it from set photos that were being released everywhere. The Hawkeye TV show is finally going to be coming out. They were filming in that this year. Confirmed, of course, in the cast is Jeremy Renner returning as Hawkeye, and Haley Steinfeld was confirmed as the other
Hawkeye.
The other Hawkeye, exactly. Yes.
We have one Hawkeye, we have other Hawkeye.
Exactly. So really intrigued to see what they do with that show. No confirmed release date for that one. That may not come out in 2022. There seems like a lot of shows that they've got coming out with the three big shows: WandaVision, Falcon the Winter Soldier, Loki. And they also have What If, which has been announced for summer. That's a 10-episode animation series. Pretty much every single actor that appeared in the MCU has lent their voice to this animated show.
Nice.
So I wonder if they will really push this as their big show. I know animated shows don't traditionally get the same push, but when you've got actors involved like Robert Downey Jr. and like Chris Evans and like Chadwick Boseman making his final appearances as Black Panther, and Haley Atwell coming back as Agent Carter, will they really push this show as their big show throughout the summer on Disney Plus?
I do think so, and if I'm a betting man, with additional productions being kind of shut down over over the end of Christmas break and going into January in a lot of the places they are filming in the UK, in the US, etc., etc., etc. I can see Loki being pushed into Q3, Q4. The What If staying in the summer, kind of coming out and being that swapping point, and then Hawkeye being pushed to kind of the potentially some point between January and March in 2022. Well,
Loki's confirmed for June, Chris. So they have announced that it will be released in June. What If is the only one that doesn't have an actual date on there. That's set for summer. It could be August, September. But that's an animated production, so they've been able to continue working on that. Hawkeye has only recently been filming. That's where those set photos were being released from in the last couple of months. The other ones that have been announced, there's definitely work out there on them. We've seen images from Miss Marvel. officially released by Disney, showing the actress who's playing Miss Marvel. So that was definitely in production. It may have stopped production. That one's probably going to be 2022. We know Moon Knight's coming out. Still not much detail behind Moon Knight, unfortunately, announced as of yet. We know She-Hulk's coming. Confirmed that we're going to have Tatiana Maslany playing the role of Jennifer Walters on the show, which will be really interesting to see.
Yes.
The big announcement for me from the whole event, Secret Invasion is coming, starring Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury and returning Ben Mendelsohn as Talos, the Skrull from Captain Marvel. So good to have a TV show with Nick Fury going to be coming in the future about one of the biggest events in comic books. I have no idea how they're going to do this at all, but really intrigued by that.
I must say I'm pumped for Secret Invasion. I loved that comic event series when it came out, so I cannot wait to see how they do this.
Especially because the Skrulls can be anybody. So does that mean you bring back characters that have maybe disappeared from the MCU, from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and put them into this show, and they're possibly Skrulls? We'll be very interested to find out.
A big one for me is both Ironheart and the Armor Wars.
Oh, yes.
So Armor Wars is with Don Cheadle returning as James Rhodes, War Machine, tracking down rogue Iron Man armor that has been released into the world. Very similar to the storyline of the actual comics. But what we can assume from that is then Ironheart, Riri Williams, which is, she took up the mantle of Iron Man, in the comic books for a while, but, she is now known as her own super moniker, Ironheart. She has created in Ironheart the most advanced suit of armor outside of, Tony Stark.
Yes.
So she is as smart as she has built the Iron Man 2.0, if you will. And yeah, that's going to be interesting. And we're not sure how one leads into the other, but you can make some assumptions that there will be some form of crossover.
There'll be some
between
way
these
connected.
two.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
It's all connected.
Yes. There's also 2 other movies coming from Marvel next year. We have Eternals coming out next year, which I'm really excited to see what they do. I know one of my favourite Neil Gaiman projects that he worked on for Marvel was kind of the relaunch of the Eternals, and I'd say they're taking some stuff from his relaunch of the characters, so intrigued to see what's coming in that movie too.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge one for me. That has always been a strong graphic novel that I go back to a lot of time, and then they even had these 2 additional miniseries that they ran, which were fantastic, based on those revamped characters. And I think exactly what you said, we're going to get this follow-up, series, where I think these characters will play large parts throughout the rest of the universe. These are as big as the Inhumans were at one point.
Yeah. Before they made the TV show.
Exactly.
I feel so sorry for Inhumans fans, and there are a lot of people that like the Inhumans. But after that TV show, it feels like nobody wants to touch the Inhumans with a barge pole, unfortunately. The other movie coming out next year, they're really excited about, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Oh, so intrigued to see what they're going to do in that. We all know the swerve that they made in Iron Man 3 with the group The Ten Rings, led by the Mandarin. Controversial to some people, really enjoyable to some of the rest of us. But this group, The Ten Rings, is going to form a major part of the Shang-Chi storyline. That movie's finished production as well, definitely coming out in 2021. So, really intrigued to see what they do and how they incorporate that back into, what's been going on in the Iron Man world.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Shang-Chi. Currently sort of trying to get the current issues of Shang-Chi in comics, to read through those. We've got a couple. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
It's really good. Yeah. I've read the first 3 so far. Definitely worth checking out to get a bit of Shang-Chi in your life. 2 last things that were mentioned really at Disney Plus. I think we've talked about before the Blade movie coming up, starring Mahershala Ali from Luke Cage season 1. Great actor. He probably shouldn't be known as that, but he is to us. We loved him on Luke Cage.
Yeah.
He is now Oscar-winning actor Mahershala Ali, known for a lot of other movies. But really interesting to see what they do, bringing Blade back into the Marvel Universe. Another group coming back into the Marvel Universe. Confirmation, finally, there will be a Fantastic Four movie coming from Disney and Marvel.
Yes.
Really intriguing, especially because the director that's been chosen for that movie is the director of Spider-Man Homecoming and Far From Home, John Watts. Does that mean the Fantastic Four is going to be a new comedy movie from Marvel, like Spider-Man's kind of the comedy side of Sony? Also intriguing that they are bringing John Watts into the actual home of Marvel. They're bringing him over into actual Marvel Studios after his work on Sony. So that's quite intriguing.
Yeah, it is.
Fantastic Four. That's cool.
Oh, it's huge. Personally, for me, I have this ever since they kind of Boss Logic, I think, put it up. John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic and Emily Blunt as Sue Storm. that they now, to a degree, embody that vision of potentially where they could go with it. Now, I'm happy with whatever.
Yeah.
I love the Fantastic Four. I think it is it's a fun, family, wholesome side of the universe, which has gone to some serious dark places.
Yeah.
But in the initial runs and a lot of the stuff, it's always this fun, family-friendly one. And that's why I do think they're bringing in John Watts for this, because it is that family-friendliness that they can bring, where you have Blade and Black Widow and stuff, which are less family-friendly.
Let's say fifth time lucky, right? This will be the fifth attempt at Fantastic Four.
And let's hope they bring in Doctor Doom.
Well, they probably will. They have used Doctor Doom in all 4 other attempts to bring
maybe
Fantastic
not in the
Four to
first
life.
one, but if, it gets a 2 and a 3, because I really want to see Doctor Doom in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well.
Without a doubt.
That would be cool, because he is a big character.
He's a massive character, but they just have never been able to nail it before. I'm so happy that we're all so excited to see what Marvel are doing with Fantastic Four. We have constantly pointed out on TV podcast industries to anybody who's complained that we're a positive podcast and are only talk about positive things, or we're overly positive about movies. Go check out our Fantastic Four podcast. We were very disappointed in that one. That is the place I always send people if they say that we're too positive. Go listen to that. We were very negative on that movie. So excited that we're all excited. There you go.
Yes, exactly. I think the one thing I will say, and we will, before we move on, I think is probably the best way of putting it. 2021 will be an interesting year. We will have to wait and see how box office opens, when they reopen and things like that. So I think best to keep on our toes when it comes to schedulings and things like that. I think I will be happy how everything is progressing right now and how everything is scheduled right now. But I think, look, time will tell on a lot of these things. And sure, if we have to watch Black Widow on my 65-inch, I'm okay with that. I will get really close to the screen and pretend it's IMAX.
Yeah, definitely. Last section, let's just talk about some of the upcoming announcements as well on Star Wars. You guys happy with that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, lots and lots of stuff. I think when you put them side by side against each other, the announcements for Marvel movies coming up and Marvel TV shows coming up, and the Star Wars universe, what's coming up on TV for them and in movies for them, I think the schedule is about the same number. I think it's something like 12 shows on either side. Let's just quickly go through the shows that were announced for Star Wars. See if anyone's takes your fancy, guys. We have got the confirmation that there will be a Mandalorian season 3 coming up in the future, but also spinning off in the Mando timeline, as they're calling it now. We have Ahsoka, which is focusing on one of the former Jedis that we got to see in Mandalorian season 2. Really intrigued to see what they do with that show.
Definitely,
particularly given one of our favourite Marvel actresses has taken on the role of Ahsoka.
Oh, absolutely! Like this, I'm really excited for because you had the mention in Mandalorian season 2 of Grand Admiral Thrawn. Mm-hmm. I wonder if something's going to link in here, given that seems to be Ahsoka's mission in the Mando. Obviously, at the start of lockdown as well, I absolutely binged Star Wars Rebels,
That's right,
which has Ahsoka involved with the gang of rebels, and whether, this possibility, okay, I know it's just conjecture, it's whether you'll have a real life version of Ezra in the same way that Ahsoka has come in.
Maybe.
And that link in, Dave Filoni, who's involved with Mando, and with Ahsoka, then I really like the way he's at least teasing elements like the Grand Admiral Thrawn, and this may be the vehicle where you get that, for me, one of the best post sort of, Luke Skywalker, one of the great villains, of the Empire, Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Yeah, definitely. Really, really interested to see what they do with that show. Dave Filoni often points out that this was the last character created by George Lucas. Ahsoka was created with Dave Filoni when they created the Clone Wars animated movie. So he's very at pains to point out this is someone connected to the original kind of strategy, I suppose, of the original Star Wars, and now getting her own show in the Mandalorian timeline. Also, Rangers of the New Republic announced. Also in the Mandalorian timeline, a spin-off, featuring some characters, in Mandalorian. I think Cara Dune, is moving off into the Rangers of the New Republic. Those two then, will join up with the most recently announced, Boba Fett spin-off show. All three of those shows then combining with Mandalorian for a big epic final event was the announcement that was made there. So I think if we don't see Grand Admiral Thrawn in any of those shows, he will be the big bad that everybody goes to face in the event series that closes out that kind of chapter of the Mando universe. Of Star Wars,
absolutely.
Which I think is really cool. What else was announced in the Star Wars stuff, Chris?
There was Andor, which is going to be an interesting one for me. I don't know how to put it. We know the history of Andor. We know the end. So I'm very interested to see, is this a bit like Krypton, the TV show? Where we knew the end of Krypton. We knew where it was going. But we're just not sure, so I'm intrigued to see what happens on that. Yeah. The other big known one is, Bad Batch, which is a cartoon series, animated cartoon series, about the Bad Batch of, clones, which I'm intrigued. Again, it's something we've probably already seen in that one. But again, in Filoni we trust to a degree. He hasn't steered it wrong. So for this, again, we're assuming Dave Filoni is involved in the Bad Batch, just based on his involvement in the Clone Wars and things like that. So it will be interesting to see how all this goes. What I'm wondering is, Filoni and Jon Favreau seem to have this guiding hand a bit, and I think that's where they're going to, they may, to a degree, start to play in a lot on this Mandalorian timeline, if we will. Kind of like Bad Batch may feed into what had previously happened. Right. I'm very much intrigued to see what, in this post-season 2 Mandalorian world, where they've announced all these projects, which is starting to sound very much like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and how they planned on that. I'm so intrigued to see how things play out. Like the Ahsoka TV show for me is a huge one, because we're going to get that beautiful Jedi kind of lightsaber play on screen on a level that we've only seen in movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be amazing.
Absolutely. And that it's such a great job in introducing Ahsoka as a character with that wonderful lightsaber battle, back in Mandalorian season 2 as well. One thing definitely I completely forgot to mention when I mentioned, Boba Fett, one of the most intriguing things for me about that is that Robert Rodriguez is taking on a leadership role on that show. He's becoming effectively the third showrunner alongside Favreau and Filoni for that show. That's really interesting to me. I love Robert Rodriguez. I love what he's done with his movies and what he's been able to get out of production on his movies. So I'm really intrigued to see what he does with Boba Fett on TV.
Yeah, and the whole documentary series for Mandalorian season 2, that just was one episode. The bit for Robert Rodriguez's episode, where Baby Yoda was taken back by Moff Gideon, from the planet. That whole episode, I think maybe episode 5 or 6, and
Yeah.
you see Robert Rodriguez's love of the character Boba Fett in that. It was really interesting. And he pushed the boat out for that episode as well, from what you can see. So that, I think that's really positive from me.
Can you guys clarify something very quickly for me? So the Book of Fett, which is the Boba Fett series, will return in end of 2021. It is separate from the Mandalorian season 3.
Definitely.
And it is its own thing. So we are going to get a Mando season 3 and then the Book of Fett, which is so that will probably take place of Mandalorian in that kind of late kind of yearly spot.
Yeah, they haven't confirmed any release for Mandalorian Season 3. All they've really said, and again, you see this in the documentaries for the show, I don't know whether you've watched any of the documentary, the making of stuff. One of the things that's most intriguing about how they filmed The Mandalorian is that they're using a set for everything that they do, so they don't have to worry about location shooting. Everything is filmed pretty much on this set called The Volume, which is now this amazing production facility. They're building 3 or 4 of them around the world that Disney are using for multiple productions. So they will have much more opportunity, even in the worldwide situation that we're in, to be able to continue filming all of these shows. What they have said is Boba Fett is in production right now. So that they're definitely aiming for end of 2021 unless something major happens. But Mandalorian, potentially they could be delaying Mandalorian season 3 to have some of the other shows leading into it, and kind of bring it together that way. But yeah, really intrigued. We don't even know whether the Boba Fett show is going to be taking place after the Mandalorian, whether it will be the story of how he got out of the Sarlacc pit at the end of Return of the Jedi, and how he got to the place he was. What we do know is Ming-Na Wen is going to be continuing her role from Mandalorian in another Disney show. She's basically been in all of the universes that Disney owns so far, right?
It's fantastic.
Wonderful Ming-Na Wen. Adore her.
All I can say, though, is we are blessed with some amazing content coming. Not Absolutely. In 2021 and 2022 and going beyond. Not just on Disney, but in all aspects. I think I can't wait for what we can potentially watch and what we can potentially talk about.
Absolutely, yeah. Last couple of ones that were announced were Obi-Wan Kenobi, which we knew was coming, but we know filming is beginning on that. I think in March of next year is when the announcement for that was. That's really interesting, seeing that Hayden Christensen will be coming back for that show. Again, we don't know what part he's going to play. The last time we saw Hayden Christensen in the role, he was in the mask of Darth Vader. So, in the worst scene in cinema history, but
poor Hayden,
but not Hayden Christensen's fault. No, he didn't even do the voiceover that I have been slagging off since I saw that movie. So definitely not his fault. But
I think we determined that no is the hardest word to do dramatically.
Yes,
that actually. For what it is trying to convey when it's that dramatic no.
Yes, exactly. And in the hands of the great James Earl Jones as well, it failed miserably at the end of Revenge of the Sith. So Hayden Christensen may be able to get his revenge when we see him.
His revenge on the Sith.
Yeah, exactly. Let's hope. Go on, Hayden.
So we know that Kenobi is set 10 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith. So most likely it's either going to be flashbacks of Hayden Christensen before that time, or he is going to be walking around as Darth Vader. Intriguing. Lando also confirmed, unfortunately, very early preparation on this, so no confirmation whether Donald Glover will return to his wonderful performance as Lando Calrissian. He was one of the absolute standouts in the movie Solo, which I enjoyed. It was a fun romp of a movie, but Donald Glover in that movie was so much fun, just eating up the scenery as Lando Calrissian. So I'm intrigued to see if we'll get Billy Dee Williams maybe reprising his role as well as the older version of Lando, and see Donald Glover in there as Lando again. That'd be cool.
I assume the reason for a lot of the non-casting announcements on some of these, like Moon Knight, on the Lando shows and things like that, my assumption is it is coming down to contracts have not been fully signed, and they're slowly backing up dump trucks full of money to the likes of Robert Downey Jr. and Oscar Isaac apparently is in discussions for Moon Knight, and like I said, Donald Glover. It's all just the dump trucks are so weighed down by the amount of cash and gold bullion. It just takes time to get to the actor's house before they can sign the contract.
And part of what Disney and Marvel have been so big at doing is the announcement of who's cast in the roles is almost as big as the release date of a show sometimes. You know, we saw with Tatiana Maslany, she was caught in a corner by an interviewer that was talking to her and absolutely knew she was on the show on She-Hulk. And she could not confirm it because it's in her contract. She can't release that information. It's up to Marvel to release and to choose the time and date. So she had to say with a completely straight face, I've never even talked to them about that show. And 3 weeks later, comes out from Marvel going, she's not only has she talked, she's already been in production, she's already setting up, ready to go for it.
She's wet the nib and signed.
But that stuff is so difficult. You know, every journalist knows that people can't confirm stuff that's not been released by the company. But they all try and catch them in their little loops and tricks and trip ups. But yeah, we do have lots of confirmation. That was a really fun event, given the year that was out there this year, where we didn't have any conventions, we didn't have any big releases. It's weird to say that the shareholders event for Disney was a fun event for everyone to watch.
Exactly.
It did give you flashbacks to that first episode of The Boys season 1, where we had Elizabeth Shue standing in front of a braying crowd of people telling them what the share price for Vought Industries was, and everybody going, yay, your share prices have gone up.
It really is Disney.
It is Disney. Yes. But they will make this year an entertaining year anyway.
Yes.
Hopefully you've all found this an entertaining podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, fellow listeners. Hopefully you'll join us for the rest of next year. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, make sure you go over to tvpodcastindustries.com. Subscribe to us there. You can also join us on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries. And if you want to tell us what you're excited about in 2021, you can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, we're on Twitter as well, at TVPod Industries.
Yes, but of course we would love you to help us keep the lights on as we go into a very busy 2021, by supporting us over on Patreon at patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries, where just $1 will help keep these mics powered, so you will hear our dulcet tones. And I will not threaten you with a good time, but I will threaten you that if you do not support us, you will get me singing in the podcast. But if you support us on Patreon, you will get me not singing. There you go.
Interesting.
We could do a run through all the musicals that have ever been put onto a film.
Let's not do that.
And Chris could sing his points.
Would you like to hear me sing Defying Gravity? Cackle-walling, if you will. Defying Gravity? No, you will not. What about A Cat on a Hot Tin Roof? I don't even know what that is. Because that's what it would sound like. It's not even Fiddler on the Roof, it's Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
I think that would be defying musical scales, Chris, rather than defying gravity. Yes, as Chris mentioned, you can support us over on Patreon. If you go over there now, we have our first 5 episodes of mine and John's discussion about Marvel 616. We're trying to get back into the Marvel universe, so we decided to watch the Marvel documentary on Disney+.
We did, and it was very satisfying seeing fellow Defenders again.
Yes, but we will be back for our next big show, as we mentioned many times here. We'll be back after January 15th with our chat about WandaVision. Make sure you stay subscribed, and thanks so much for listening.
Yes, thank you so much. I threaten you with a good time, but it's still going to be a good time. Thank you so much. Speak to you soon.
Yeah, thanks so much, fellow industrialists. Great chatting with you. Can't wait for 2021. Keep watching, keep listening, and stay subscribed.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.